Hi, and welcome to According to Weeze, the podcast. With me, your girl Weeze. This is a show where we're going to have candid conversations with the hopes of finding a way forward in community. See, fundamentally, I believe that we exist at the intersection of our complex identities, politics, and our sociocultural systems. And let's be real, the only way to dismantle it all is to dissect it. So get cozy, get comfy, and let's dive in. What's up, y'all? I feel like it's really important for me to tell y'all what day we are recording because context matters. It is Friday, November 6th, 2020. We are still awaiting presidential results, though based on a number of factors, it looks like Biden-Harris might have it. Big shout out Stacey Abrams. But that's important to note before we jump into the conversation. Y'all, I'm super, super excited to have our today's guest here. I was on her show like 2 months ago over the summer, just like randomly, like the internet blew up and like a whole bunch of us were kind of like finding each other in community. And then, this amazing human was like, yo, do you want to come on my show? And then I like did the thing that I do. I like sleuthed and was like, ooh, like we could be friends. Yes, I want to be on your show. So then I went on her show. Y'all, I have the lovely Katara with me. I am so excited that you are here. Hello. Hi. How are you?
Hi. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
I found you on the web, on the internet, on Instagram, and invited you to come on the show. We felt like we had known each other and kind of hit it off in our conversation. And we were like, can we be BFFs? And we both were like, sure. Yeah. And now I'm on your show and it feels so good to be here. I love that we're doing this today. So I love that we're connecting and doing this on this, what's been a bit of a roller coaster of a week.
Yeah. I think it's like important for the folks to note, because like right when we finished recording your show, it was like end record. And then I was like, do you want to come on my show? Like, and y'all will figure out why in a second, because we're going to have an amazing conversation about something very specific. But, then life happened and all the things, and I got hella busy, and then, you're hella busy, and then your app launched, but the universe doesn't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Because it is not an accident that like this week happened to be both like, for me, it's like my birthday week. And I always do this thing around my birthday week of like doing a really hard reassessment of like, how much of myself am I giving away? How much do I need to reclaim for myself? Like balance and reprioritizing me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I need to talk to Katara because we need to have her on to have this conversation. Yeah. Anyways, before we get too much further, the listeners know this is normally how I do it. What do you want the people to know about you outside of the like beautiful bio that will be in the show notes that the people can read all the things about there? But like, what do you want people to know about you now?
Yeah. So I've been saying this all year. I'm 48 years old. Mm-hmm. And so can we cuss?
Girl. Follow me on Instagram. Come on now.
So I'm 48 years old. I give zero fucks. And I'm just at that age in my life where I just am living my life the way I want to live it. Mm-hmm. And really passionate about Black women, brown women, advocating for their emotional well-being, doing even education around that, the importance of mental health, the importance of emotional well-being. I'm a mom of 2 adult daughters. They're amazing women. I'm an author, I'm a coach, I'm coaching organizations around cultivating a practice of anti-racism. So I'm doing that and just really trying to take my whole life that's led me up to this point, all of my education, my resources, my learning, my wisdom, and giving it back to my community and doing work that's going to benefit my community, the Black community.
Yeah. Well, it must be working because 40 what, where? I'm sorry. all the levels of fabulous. And I think I just need to know that.
I'm like literally digging my heels in the sand, looking at 50. I'm like, bitch, you ain't gonna get me. You are not gonna get me.
And 50's like, yes, I am. It's inevitable. Come on, sis.
For me. But you know what? There's something about being in your mid to late 40s where you just kind of settle in to who you are and settle into your body. You settle into all things. Yeah. And that takes a lot of work, and that takes a lot of growth and a lot of really digging deep. But there's just something about, 48. I just have said it like, bitch, I'm 48. Like, I ain't got time. I am 48 years old. Somebody starts tripping. I'm like, I am 48 years old. So there's something about this year that's been very, feels very grounding and almost like cementing me in my mission and my purpose and my why and who I am.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, it just like oozes out of you. Like, it's very clear that you're like, that's your energy. And I'm like, we all need this energy. Like, I look at you and I'm like, when I get there, because I'm younger, I'm like, when I get there, I want full Katara energy.
Girl, if you only knew the amount of tears and therapy and coaching and bathroom floor grieving. And,
I'm sure. Because that's how I feel. People are like, you're only 35, but you seem like you've like lived more life, and I'm like, no. Let's be clear about the come apart that had to happen. Like
the unraveling,
completely unraveling, like a concerted choice to like let it all burn to the ground and like rise from the ashes and be like, this is going to be really hard, really messy, really ugly, really painful. I'm gonna cry a lot.
Yes.
And, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So I just like
allow what emerges to emerge.
Yeah.
And like embrace it. From pain and grief and loss. It's a journey. And also the good stuff too, right? Like, the wins and the celebrations and the successes, but there's both and not either or to get there.
Yeah. And the thing that I love, I just love our conversations in general, but I love that we both have this very clear conversation in everything that we do around like the duality and like the needing of the both.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like the good and the wins would not feel so good. And you wouldn't just, like, I don't know, like I can't really describe that feeling when you get a win. It's like that elation almost, right? Also embrace and face the quote unquote bad and the pain and the ugly, right? Like that's the full human experience. Speaking of the human experience, how you feeling today, considering this week and all the things?
Man, it has been a week. It has been a roller coaster of a week. There's part of me, that's really feeling good about kind of the turn and as the voting, the counts are happening with the ballots, seeing kind of it turn in favor of Biden and Harris. There's a part of me that feels really good about that. And like, okay, like there's a part of me that wants to like, it's Friday. I'm like, ooh, I'll put my red lipstick on because maybe after this I'll go have a drink and we'll be celebrating. But then there's also part of me that feels very, there's this grief as well. And this, but we have some truth that we're staring in the face as well, because there is still half of our nation that is supporting what I believe is a racist and a white supremacist and all the things that I stand against, that is part of a system that oppresses my community. And so it's not just him. He I feel like the last 4 years kind of just kind of pulled back the scab or the cover of who we are.
Yeah.
And that's a pill that I'm like, ooh, while there's this like, yay, there's also this, like there's some reckoning, which we all, we know
right
has to happen. And we've been looking at that, but on today and through the weekend, it feels a little bit like, what am I celebrating actually? And is there a celebration, right?
Yeah.
Celebrating maybe him getting out of office and what the next 4 years could look like had he remained in his administration, and just the nonsense. But there definitely is some truth that we're staring in the face today, specifically when I'm advocating for Black, Indigenous, women of color's emotional well-being, and, what that represents, and the oppression that comes with white supremacist ideology, and that's in our country heavily. Yeah. It's not just like this little small fraction of folks, right? It's like,
it's actually the majority. Like I just posted on IG, like, everybody's talking about white folks right now, which 55% of white women, 58% of white men voted for Trump. But NPR posted a full breakdown by race. And I was like, let us not forget whiteness and racism's middle sibling, anti-Blackness.
Yes.
Because the overwhelming amounts of, even just melanated folks who also support him. Really what that means is that whiteness is so deeply rooted in the fabric of our society and how we are indoctrinated to view ourselves and each other, that we're not just quote unquote fighting him or fighting white people. Like we're fighting an entire, to your point, like ideology and system of oppression. Because folks have really been indoctrinated, melanated folks have been indoctrinated to believe that if they increase their proximity to whiteness, then they'll be okay, versus, which is a fallacy, versus understanding that, like, no, we just have to dismantle the whole thing. And so for me, I'm like, oh, this is just like that, regular reminder that is in fact the case. And I know people are like, because I've been real petty on IG all day today. When we're done,
I love pettiness.
I wrote a PS. I was like, I bet y'all didn't know that a satirical little petty gremlin lived inside of my soul. I call her Petty LaBelle. She has a name.
Petty LaBelle. I love her.
She has a name. But like the things that I'm celebrating Stacey Abrams.
Yes.
Right. And I'm not celebrating her because she helped get Biden in office or flip Georgia. I'm celebrating her because once again, after a white man did what white men do, we're talking about Kemp, and absolutely stole the election.
Absolutely.
Right? From underneath her. She said, hold my coat.
She said, give me 10 days.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Right? I'll be back. And so for me, I'm like, that's what I'm uplifting. That's what I'm celebrating. And not because it's a good thing. Obviously, it's a terrible thing that she even has to do that. Yeah. But the fact that, like, just again, like I'm like, that's who I'm gonna celebrate right now.
Exactly. And literally what we're seeing is because of the work of Black women.
Okay.
Stacey Abrams, there's many of those women around the country that literally this election got carried across the finish line on Black women's backs, which that is what it is. But it should not be that way.
Yeah.
Which is my whole, my why is to create and provide resources for Black women, because we do carry so much and so many people and issues and like the work that she did is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And over 800,000 folks registered. She been working for 4 years. It's been working.
Right.
So what I know as a Black woman, she's tired. Right? Like give the lady a vacation, let her kick back.
Full paid.
But that's what we do. But that is what we do. Yeah. We get in, we lean in, we do the work, and then we keep doing the work, and then we keep doing the work, and then we keep doing the work. And then we exhaust ourselves.
Yep.
For the sake of the community, because we are so passionate about, we are the mothers and the grandmothers of our community, right? And so we want to carry folks, sometimes to our detriment.
Yep.
It's not, again, it's not about don't do the work for the community. It's about do the work for the community, but also retreat and take care of your emotional well-being and your mental well-being. It's both and.
Yeah.
And I think that when I see, I posted today about Stacey, I was just like, applaud. But I also know she tired. She's tired today. She's beyond tired.
Yeah. And I think it's really, I really want to make sure that the listeners understand the dynamic of the fact that this country has always and forever been carried, supported, uplifted, and saved by Black women, femmes, and non-binary folk, period, point blank.
Yeah.
And also, the way that whiteness works is it means that there is explicitly an intentional limit on access to those same resources that are necessary to replenish, to protect your peace, to take care of your mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological well-being. And so instead what happens is, and we're saying Stacey Abrams because today we're going to rejoice her because she fucking did that, right?
Killed it.
That. But to your point, there are Stacey Abrams, Tamika, Miss Pat Getty, everywhere. Right. Each one of us that are doing in our own little pockets, but, and also that's what happens, right? Somebody gets tired, and then instead of retreating to actually be able, and then having access to resources to actually take care of themselves, it's you might go sleep. Maybe you just plug your battery back in, and then you just pass the baton to somebody else who has a little bit more energy. But then when they get to that point of exhaustion, then they pass it, or they just pass it back to you because you got a nap, or but there's no actual recharge. There's no actual healing that's happening in the in-between.
Right. Because those systems of oppression aren't just keeping us, right? It's not, it is about access, but it's also traumatizing. And then we're holding that trauma.
Yeah.
In our bodies, right? We're carrying around the stress, the anxiety, the trauma. We take a nap, but we still wake up with it.
100%.
And some of it, if we keep holding on to that, makes us physically sick.
Yes.
Mentally sick, where we check out.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah. That process of weathering is, I think that people don't quite grasp it, right? If you're an umbrella and you're outside year round, the elements are going to take their toll on you. Period. Right? If you walk out the door every day and you have to put armor on, but the rest of the world is constantly putting cracks in that armor, but you don't have a place to restore that armor. You don't have anywhere to replace, and you can't replace it. Right? Then what do? You have to carry it. That's also why, and this is a total aside, but this is one of the reasons why I'm even looking for ways in which we're shifting narratives and changing language around resiliency.
Yes.
Because if one more person uses the word resilient to specifically describe Black and brown women and femmes, I feel like I'm gonna smash my face against a wall. Yeah. I'm just like, don't.
Yeah.
You think what you're saying is a compliment and really good, and it's really not. I would love to not be resilient.
Right.
I would actually love to not be resilient.
Wow.
And I would love instead to be celebrated for all of my humanness and that duality we were talking about in the beginning, instead of just the strength. Or how about you use that same energy to dismantle the things that force us to have to be resilient?
Exactly.
Because resilience is a fancy word for survival.
Exactly. And really supporting Black women, rallying around Black women who are leading the charge on many different levels, right?
Yeah.
And this includes a call out to Black men, right? We need support versus being out in front. And like you said, the word weathered is it's a perfect analogy, right? It's a perfect metaphor because we are weathered. And there has to be, and that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, because I really want to create a movement. And I think that there are pockets happening. I can see the Nat ministry and all these little pockets that are rest is resistance and take care of yourself and that kind of thing. And so I'm really passionate about that because even looking at you, talking to you right now, I'm like imagining a world where Black women are rested, are healed, are nourished, are supported. Girl, come on.
I mean,
if we're able to do what we're doing, weathered.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where we're nourished and taken care of and supported on every front.
Yeah.
What we could accomplish and do. Like, I have goosebumps.
Yeah, me too. I'm like,
wow. Wow. What an image, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
can we go to that island?
Yo, I was literally just like, do we need to buy an island
and
go there? How do we do a GoFundMe to raise an island? How much does an island cost?
All women there, the femmes there, and we just give them all the good food and nourishment and massages and facials and meditation and all the things.
Healing and sisterhood and, you know, family and community and support and all the things. Yo, sign me up.
Sign me up too.
But I think, so this is what's really why I wanted, one, to bring you on and have this conversation in general, but two, I'm like, once again, the universe makes no mistakes. Because this episode, you don't know this, but it's actually next week's episode for this reason. I'm like, this is super important. I'm like, move other episodes. This has to happen. Because specifically of the work that you're doing and how important this conversation is, because I already knew, because it happens every time there's an election or any time that anything ever happens, it's always Black women and femmes or Black and brown women and femmes that are being exalted or are being thanked or are called superheroes or, and y'all, please stop fucking doing this, spirit animals.
Oh.
Or another episode about appropriation for another time. And commodification and consumption. Anyways. But right, like every time without fail, that's the narrative that comes out. Every time. But what is not being accompanied publicly, right? Because we're having these conversations in our enclaves and in our own communities. But publicly, the conversation that's not happening is, and also they tired. They are exhausted. They are weathered. How do we support them? How do we recharge? How do we put them in positions to your point, to be healed and loved and self-cared and rested and rejuvenated and all of those things. Enter you. So, I really I'm just going to give you the floor. I really want you to talk about the app, a little bit more around your why around it. Just all the things, because I'm so obsessed with it.
Oh my gosh. You know, in April, I was reaching for my meditation apps to manage my stress and anxiety. Mid-March, I lost over half my clientele. I'm a coach, organizational coach. I'm a coach executives, specifically women, presidents of company CEOs. And COVID hit, and I was kind of first on the chopping block for many of my clients. I'm a public speaker, and all that came to a screeching halt. And so, you know, I started looking at my bank account like, oh shit, right? Like, what am I going to do? And so just managing my stress. And then in the news, what started hitting the news was how COVID was impacting the Black community disproportionately. And reporters were reporting on the story and saying, well, it's because the Black community has pre-existing conditions. Period. Which pissed me off, because that is not the full narrative. Do we have pre-existing conditions? Yes. Why do we have pre-existing conditions? Because of systemic racism. It was not the full narrative. And that full story was not being told. That makes it look like oh, we get COVID more because our skin's Black and brown. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, shut the fuck up. Like, come on. Like, tell the story. Like, tell the full story. And so growing up in the Black community, having a Black mother who is gay, having a Black grandmother who helped to raise me and my sister, knowing about the oppression, watching it happen to them, to experiencing it myself. You just know, like, it makes us sick, right?
Yeah.
The oppression makes us sick.
Yeah.
And so that was happening. Then, like, literally piggybacking on that was Ahmaud Arbery killing, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Deshaun Reed right here in Indianapolis, Indiana, right in my community. Was hitting, we were hearing about it, but it was also playing out in our news feed in the actual shootings, right?
Yeah.
The actual, like, you're like watching it, right? Which is like, I've not experienced really anything like that in my lifetime, where it just felt like it was blow after blow. It was like we could not catch our breath, right?
Yeah.
Which some of George Floyd's last words was, "I cannot breathe. I can't breathe." And so I'm sitting in my basement, trying to manage stress, anxiety, the collective grief that I was feeling with my community, fear, hopelessness. Again, what was happening with COVID was exasperated, was not surprising to us, right? It's not surprising what was happening, but it was exasperated. So it was a lot. And so I'm managing my stress, reaching for apps that normally would work for me, all of a sudden weren't working for me. Because in real time, there was a huge disconnect. I would look down at my phone, these apps, and be like, don't you know, like, it feels like my community is literally hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
The entire community is hemorrhaging. And they're like, just close your eyes and think about
light a candle.
The ocean. And I'm like,
count to 10 backwards.
I'm just like, what? And so that was happening. And, I was going to some of the folks that I follow, Black and brown women. They were doing webinars and jumping on these collectives and talking about COVID. And one of the things that I jumped on, the Black community, there was a lot of leaders, politicians, like just local level, national level, talking about what can we do as Black folk, right, to take care of ourselves. And somebody was like, we have to keep waiting for the government to come and save us, because they're not. And we got to take care of ourselves. And I went to bed that night, cried myself to sleep, and woke up the next morning and said, Katara, what can you do for your community? What can you do? What can you do? And I kept asking that question. And one morning, as I was meditating, the idea just dropped in to my heart. And I really felt like if I could create an emotional well-being app, not just a meditation app, but an app that had breath work and meditations and coaching talks. I'm a coach. Like, what if I put in the app the resources that I give my clients, that I provide for my clients? What if I put that in an app to really be a resource for Black, Indigenous women of color to turn to hear a voice that gets what their oppression, the oppression that they face moving through life in brown and Black bodies, coming from someone that understands and gets it, right, from their community, and also speaks to that oppression, right, that says, okay, microaggressions are real, and this is real, and how do you manage the anxiety that comes, like, speaking directly to us. And so I got the idea at the end of April. I ran upstairs. I told my husband, like, I think I have a really great idea. And I told him, he's like, that's a really great idea. I'm not an app developer. I would not claim to be super techie. I'm 48 years old. I remember when computers came out and email and all of it freaked us out. And we were like, what the hell? And so I wouldn't claim to be techie. So I just started Googling, like, how do you create an app? And what does this look like? And my husband and I and my two daughters, I have a 27-year-old and a 22-year-old, we just went to work. I told them the idea. They're like, oh my gosh, Mom, this is great. I wrote all the meditations, researched even deeper breath work, and had them be my two daughters be a part of the narration, and reached out to who produces my podcast, and they are owned by white people, but they were like, we love what you're doing. We've been asking ourselves, what can we do for the Black community? And so we're going to pro bono all of the producing, all of the mixing. just donated all of that. A local PR firm, same thing. They found out about what I was doing and they just got supported. And we're like, we're going to do all this work for you for the next 6 months pro bono. And so we were able to launch this app, this emotional well-being app, specifically for Black, Indigenous women of color, or those that have gender identities oppressed by racism and misogyny. The app is for us, by us. And that's kind of how it came. It came from a place of really sorrow and grief, and really feeling like I was reaching for something and I wasn't finding it for myself. There are other Black women, brown women, femmes that are reaching for something as well. And so I just felt like I wanted to show up and just, I know I'm talking a lot. Side note, I'm biologically biracial, and my white mother abandoned me when she had me at the hospital. Dad's Black, and my Black mom, who raised me, stepped up for me and took me in and raised me. And so this app and this idea felt very much full circle for me as well. Like, I'm stepping up in a time where I felt like Black women were really suffering, just like these Black women. My mom and my grandmother stepped up for me and opened up their home and took care of me and cared for me. And I had a safe place and a nourishing place. And so it feels very much like this full circle moment for me as well. Taking me back to like 1972 when I was abandoned by a white woman, which Black women feel abandoned by white women, right? And stepping up for Black women who stepped up for me.
As you're talking, well, one, I'm just like, hey, end of episode, everyone go get it, bye. But no. No, but as you're talking, I also am having this like real bittersweet moment of like, there's something very specific in Black and brown communities, specifically amongst women and femme, where we manage to go through pain, trauma, abandonment, all of these things, and we still continuously choose ourselves and choose each other. You know what I mean? And just how beautiful that is. And that is actually, to me, like when we're talking about like strength, right? Like those are the parts of the community that I think about. I'm like, it's not granted, we already talked about how amazing, Stacey Abrams and all the Stacey Abrams are. But like that to me is truly the mark of like the beauty and and like the strength of our humanity in that, in everything historically that Black and brown folk have been through. We have still not lost that communal orientation of like doing it for the culture and of saying, to your point, like, ain't nobody gonna come save us but us. And how do we do it for each other, right? And so the fact that you have like, it's like the FUBU of wellness also makes me very happy.
Well, it's so funny because I've had some of my, white women that have followed me have been to a couple of my retreats. I used to have these women's retreats that were very diverse. And they're like, oh, so are you not going to do anything for us anymore? Like, are we not going to, right? And I'm like,
I wish y'all could see my face.
And I'm like, I am literally leaning into my community in a moment of, in my opinion, like I said, it felt like we were dehydrated, like we were hemorrhaging, right? Like I'm stepping up for my people. And whatever that is for you, there is plenty of self-help, wellness. There's so much out there for you. And I actually last year, beginning of last year, kind of looked down at my clientele. It was interesting. Like I had been working in the Black and brown community for 20 years, left nonprofit work to start my own business, did that and looked down, and I had predominantly white clientele. And so I was not in any way, I felt like I had kind of drifted away, because of the industry that I was in, coaching, right? Like it was catered to, right, white folks. And so as far as like resources and having, being able to pay me and all that stuff. And so I had to I was already having a reckoning with that leading up to COVID, quarantine, losing over half my clientele. It was kind of like the universe was like, you didn't want all them white clients anyway, sis. So we just gonna go ahead and take care of that. We're gonna redirect what I'm really feel meant to do and what my work has been for years and years and years. So
yeah. I am, as you're talking, I'm sitting here grinning and laughing because, like I have Reclaim, which is specifically a program for melanated or folks who have been socialized female that are melanated. And that was the same reaction from white women. It was almost like, well, how dare you not
us? We want
reserve exactly. And I'm like, I'm still doing stuff for y'all.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just not the priority. Or the fact that when they hear me say things like, I charge my quote unquote regular rates to white folks so that I can charge less to melanated folks. One, because the pay wage gap is real. It's rooted in science. Get away from me. Two,
totally.
Two, y'all had no problem when Robin Hood did it. Y'all love Robin Hood. Leave me alone.
So true.
But it's this really interesting thing that I see happen consistently. And, you and I understand the functionality of it because we live in a white-centered, white-dominant society where everything is built for and by white folks. And so the moment that we have the audacity to say, well, this one actually isn't for you, they also inherently hear that as exclusionary because that is how whiteness functions.
Right.
Versus all we're saying is we've taken a moment to actually prioritize and to consider and to uplift and to center Black, brown, melanated folks.
Right.
And you can come if you want to.
Right.
But I'm not doing this for you.
Exactly.
And absolutely. I really want people to hear that and understand that because you don't lose out by joining this app. If you're looking for a fully holistic wellness app, and actually, if you claim to be an anti-racist and committed to anti-racism and you are on your wellness game, then these are the types of apps that you should be
absolutely
supporting and engaged in and using because you know that the content that you're consuming and the practices that you're learning and the messaging is inherently going to also have the anti-racist lens on it because that is how you have built it. You are decentering whiteness. And so if you're a white listener and you're like, oh, I'm going to check out and I don't really care because this isn't for me. This is just that reminder. This is actually the same way that we have had to figure out how to create our spaces and take little nuggets in everything that y'all create, which is the world. Right? Conversely, when we flip it and when we do something for us, y'all don't have to find nuggets. You just get more.
Exactly. And I interviewed Christine Platt, the Afro minimalist on my podcast. And she spoke about windows and mirrors, that her books are window and mirror books.
Yes.
And when we dove into the meaning of that, I thought, oh my gosh, yes, that's what Exhale is. It's an emotional well-being app that is a mirror for Black and brown, right? Black, Indigenous, women of color, femmes, right? It is also a window for white women, right? Download it, peer into the window, see, hear, listen. I had one white lady, and I've had several white women reach out and ask, is it okay? I don't want to invade the space, respectfully. And I'm like, yes, download the app. And I explained the window mirror kind of analogy, this can be a window for you. And some of those women have since responded and said, I'm learning. I'm learning from you. This is making me really dive deeper into my anti-racism practice. This is a part of my practice now. The Exhale app and listening to it. And so, yes, while I'm creating with my focus completely on us, that's what I'm doing. It can still be a resource, like you're saying, for white women to dive into and participate in. Now, if I had a community space on there, we were talking to each other and stuff, it'd be a different story.
Right. Let us be clear.
may not be invited. right? But because it's just an app that you can download and then kind of weave through at your own pace and listen to what you want to listen to when you want to listen to it, absolutely, Exhale app is a mirror that's also a window for folks as well.
And I think that's a really good point, like to explicitly say, like, don't be upset when, you know, we can go outside again and there's an Exhale retreat and y'all aren't invited. Because if y'all, and here's the thing, if y'all have been listening to my show long enough and or have just listening to me long enough, it's because you understand that there is a certain level of safety, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, required for the healing of Black and brown folks that cannot be done in the presence of whiteness.
Absolutely.
Y'all know that. So don't do the thing.
That is so true.
Yeah. Petty LaBelle like just has a comment to make because this is my mood.
Come on, Petty.
Yeah, listen.
What you got to say?
So I also just want to like, just for folks to ruminate on. Why is it that white folks, and specifically white women, have never had a problem with Black and brown women and femmes raising their children and caring for their children and their homes, but wouldn't think that they could also then be cared for and or will always constantly have their, you know, Black or brown best friend who's like their mama who holds them together and protects them and rides for them. But you don't think that when a Black woman sits down to create a full holistic wellness app, that it would also care for you?
Right.
That's just, you know, just
petty.
Just something to think about.
Yeah, say something.
Listen, this is gonna be my whole mood.
I love it. When you were talking about retreats, I went to a retreat last November, and I had vowed to myself that I was not going to continue to put myself in spaces that were predominantly white, spaces to be nourished by. And so my girlfriend invited me to this. She's like, it's so good. It's so good. She's white. She's like, it's so good. So good. You know, they're really working toward diversifying and like opening it up to Black and brown women and femmes. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, she's like, I'm actually going to get you your ticket. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. You just come. I'm like, okay. So I go and I show up and it's just me. And I think that there was another brown woman. I think she was Latina. I don't know. But there was it was just that
was it. Yeah.
And I walked in and my stomach just sank because I thought, and there were two white women leading it. And, you know, while they did address that it wasn't diverse and that they recognized that there wasn't representation in the room, and I spoke specifically my concerns that there were no Black women there, you know, it was disheartening to me. And there was this moment where we were doing this exercise and I just burst into uncontrollable tears because I had this image that came up in my spirit of Black women all outside the room, just surrounding the building. And inside the building was all white women. And it was like this overwhelming grief. And I was wailing. Yeah. And my girlfriend came over and she just like came up beside me and put her arms around me. And she just whispered in my ear and she's like, you're laboring for Black and brown women right now. And I just literally, might sound a little crazy, but I just went into this, I didn't, now I'm realizing I was really birthing my why back then, realizing in that this wellness space, they were talking about embodiment. And I was just like, Black women need this we need this message, but we're out there because we're not safe in here. And so really realizing back then I was giving birth to something that would be that safe, and I don't want to say safe, brave space for Black and brown women and femmes to show up to through Exhale app, where they can receive well-being and well-being resources to manage their stress, anxiety, trauma, grief, all the things that we go through. I think every single
melanated human being that just listened to you tell that story is like, oh yeah, that was me at my last, like I will not go to retreats. I will not go to in-person things. And in fact, right before COVID, we should talk actually, because I have a project called the Cocoa Butter Collective. And very similar, like was gonna launch, and then like COVID, and there was supposed to be in person, and obviously outdoors is no longer a thing. And it's very similar, because it's like I went to my last retreat where I was supposed to be held and safe and all of these things, because they really promised that they were doing it differently, and that they had thought about, and I had done all the like, dual two-sided interviewing and asking all the questions. And I got to say it, I got also. They had mastered the language of equity and the perception of equity without actually having done the work to have the integrity of actionability. Yeah. Right. And of behavioral change.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
The action. You can say it and it can sound really great and you can look really great. But if Black and brown women are not, and femmes are not in the room, then you don't have the retreat.
Exactly.
You don't have up front, you've got 2 white women and you're not sharing that leadership space with brown and Black women and femmes, then you don't have the retreat.
Exactly.
That was my like thing. Like, you don't do it.
Right.
You gotta put action behind this. Like, look at your...
Right. If you haven't even thought about your practices, the type of music you're playing, like...
Where it's at. Girl,
I was just going to
say... They had me out on a country ass road.
Oh no, ma'am.
Girl, at night I had to drive, because I stayed in the city. I said, hotel in the city.
Yeah.
I can walk to the coffee shop and get me
and there's security cameras.
Right. Girl, I'm on a country ass road leaving. It's dark. I'm terrified. Literally. And I'm thinking, like, I'm in some white town, predominantly white town, on this back road. There are no streetlights. I'm freaking out. Like, if you really want to cultivate a space for Black and brown women and femmes, then you have to cultivate the space. Have it in the city. Have it where the streetlights are. You know what I'm saying?
I said that to somebody and they thought I was being cute. Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry, where is it? No, like, I don't go into the forest. And they thought like, oh, you don't do nature, you don't do I'm like, no, that's not what I said.
No.
I'm not going anywhere where you don't have streetlights, you don't have, like, you have one sheriff and his 2 best friends are the entire police force.
Right.
And, it's 20,000 yards between each house and dirt roads. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Girl, they had me out there. I was.
No. On this episode of what we're not finna do. No.
I was freaked out, which brings a whole level of anxiety. Like, I'm there to retreat and I'm completely on guard.
Right.
You're like behind my back, walking to my car. Like, I'm like, this is not healthy. This is not good for me. Right.
Like, how do you disconnect and like look into self if you have to keep your head on a swivel at all times? Exactly. Like, if I have to walk into the space and know where all the exits are.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
I don't want to be here.
Right. Exactly.
And that right there is why I was like, y'all are not bringing, like, no, not doing it. Don't ask me. I don't want to come. Leave me alone. Like,
that was my last one.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But I had a revelation at it. So that's
good.
Good stuff for my folks.
Right. I mean, and I think though, like this, in summation, this is why we do need spaces that are curated for and by, right, us, for the collective, for the culture, like really, really decentering whiteness and taking into account, because the flip side is ultimately, like, bring us back to the beginning of the episode. No one's going to save us. And every time we have a Kemp who literally steals our, whether it's our position or, whatever the thing is. And we still just have to say, all right, well, I'm going to roll up my sleeves.
Yeah.
Just watch, right? Like, we constantly already know we have to do that. And so it's like, we need that wellness, like, enter stage left. Because God forbid that Black and brown women and femme and then, other melanated folks decide that they're not going to fight this fight anymore.
Right.
And they're also not going to put up with whiteness.
Exactly.
What you gonna do?
Exactly.
Who gonna watch your kids?
Right. And it's good for us. It's good, like in creating this app, we need exclusive spaces and places, because if not, I'm not exhaling.
Yeah.
I'm not exhaling. I'm continuing to hold my breath. I'm continuing to tense up, right? I'm waiting to exhale.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting to have a space that I can exhale, which is why I created the app. So the women, femmes, Black, brown can push the pause button. This is a space, a brave space that is created by us for us.
Yeah. Because living life on bated breath is not it. Let me tell you.
No.
It's not the move.
No,
it's not. But I love that. I love your mission. I love all the things. I will say shout out to whoever put that retreat together and thought you had it figured out, because you created, it was probably that last thing in the like tempest that was brewing inside of you, right? It was like that last little ingredient where like the ancestors, your spirit, everything.
Absolutely.
No.
Exactly.
This is what we have to do. This needs to be brought into the world.
Yeah.
And it's so crucial and so important right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
More than ever. Because what I will also say is the more that we resource ourselves, the better we then are for ourselves and then our community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to make our emotional well-being and our mental well-being an absolute priority.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, I think sometimes we think self-care is, let me go get a pedicure, but I'm answering emails it really is about practicing mindfulness and pushing the pause button and getting with ourselves, and really getting quiet and being with us.
Yep.
Right. And really coming home to ourselves. When I talked about earlier being 48 and, just where I am today, like that took me really getting alone with myself, staring my truth in the face.
Yeah.
Reclaiming my full story.
Yeah.
Rewriting parts of my story, right? Believing something that actually wasn't true.
Yeah.
Or wasn't the full truth about me and my story, right? That takes us pushing all the things to the side for a second and really taking time to be with us, right? To be with ourselves. And so we can create an avenue to really come home to ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we're able to do that, I think that then we can better serve the community. We can better serve our families, right? We can better serve the collective. And so it's about prioritizing, but also understanding that there's true benefits. Like if you look at the science behind breathing and what it does for your body and getting that trauma. And we don't just have trauma from facing systemic racism. We're carrying in our DNA the trauma of our ancestors, right? And so we have to do that work to really get that trauma out of our bodies. And there is an actual science to breath work, meditation, mindfulness, right? The visualizations that we have on the app, we have one that's about taking an internal journey to connect with your ancestors.
I love that.
Right? And it's just these empowering resources to help you really get centered, get grounded, and really come home to yourself so you can then go out and you thought you were killing it before, right? Like
talk about a level up.
A level up.
Yeah, right.
Level up. Yes. Leveling up.
Yeah. So, okay. I always do a call to action to end the show. But before I do, is there anything that you want to leave the people with? Like a nugget, wisdom? I mean, you've already dropped so many gems on them. So if you're done, I also get it.
I think I would say, especially to Black, Indigenous women of color, Black, Indigenous femmes, understanding that there truly is power in our breath. And if we could daily and throughout the day connect to our breath, we're connecting to our power. And that helps us to really do the work that we feel called to do, or that we're being drawn to do, or because ain't nobody else doing it. We got to do it, right? That there's true power in our breath. And I go back to the last words that George Floyd said was, I can't breathe. And we have, the Black community has been saying that and experiencing that for 400 years. But there is power in our breath. And while we can't control what happens outside, right, when we walk out of our doors, systems of oppression that we face, anti-Blackness, microaggression, we can't control that, but we really can control our breath. And there's power in our breath. So I just want to encourage specifically all the brown and Black folk, make breath work a priority, because that's where your power is. It's in your breath.
I love that. Yeah, that was a good last nugget. All right, y'all. So your call to action for this episode, y'all know my cycle of sustainable revolution. There is the rest, reset, and recharge phase. And I really want y'all to go download Exhale. And I want you to start incorporating this into your cycle of sustainable revolution. Because not only is it going to just, like we said, level you up on a everyday basis, but I promise and guarantee you that it will absolutely change the way in which you are able to engage with this work and continuously show up for dismantling systems and the conversations and the uncomfortable stuff and everything that comes with it. You really need this. So y'all have heard me talk about creating that, getting your Dora the Explorer backpack and filling it with all the tools that you need for the journey. And this is a tool that y'all need. So your call to action, download it, incorporate it, and then come tell us on the interwebs what your favorite aspect has been, whether it was breath work or visualization or meditation or, one of the coaching nuggets or whatever the thing is, what really is like lighting you up in the way that you needed to be lit up. So that's your call to action. Thank you so much for being here. I would do this with you every day.
Listen, this gave me so much life. It feels like my tank was on E. Yeah. And I'm so glad you reached out, and it happened to be today. I got to see your face and hear your voice and have great conversation. I feel hydrated. I feel like I just drank a bunch of water for my soul.
Big same. Which is why we need our spaces so that we can kiki and heal.
Exactly.
Because I feel the same way. I'm like, I'm gonna go fuck today up now. This is great.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. I got my shirt on. I'm like,
right. I'm like, let's get it. I know.
Let's get it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you
for being here, mamas. I appreciate you. All right, y'all. Y'all know what to do. That's it. That's all I got. Bye.
And now for Ask Weaves, a segment where you get to pick my brain for free.
Listen, I'm still stuck on the fact that you think I'm a celebrity. I'm just a regular girl from Oakland.
No. So number one, you are a celebrity. Number two, of the celebrities who actually deserve our adoration.
Just think of it as having a conversation with just a random opinionated chick that you met in line at a coffee shop.
Who's super fucking smart, super fucking qualified to answer.
But you don't know that yet. We just met. All right. So what is the question? What do you have for me?
So I think I'm a fourth Japanese white presenting. I've been around Black people my whole life. And so I've seen racism in certain ways in those experiences. But my son is X. And so racism in education since he was 2.5 has been this in my face, but it's this weird questioning, right? Of is this racism or is this what is it, right? And I think a lot of parents who maybe weren't struggling before or were struggling before or now actually waking up, right? If white parents hadn't experienced that personally, what is the answer now, right? With all this Black everywhere, right?
Yeah, at the PWIs.
Yes, and for good reason, but also we could do it at any, there's too many Washington townships, Washington Township of Indianapolis, Washington, if we want to go all the way, let's go all the way on some level. And this idea of parents, this battle of Do you stay there? Do you fight the good fight? Do you do like what's like the academic, the right answer, preparing them?
Mm-hmm.
And like our personal experience, right? So like I've listened to you and like your personal experience. And I think like as a parent, it's really difficult to make those sort of choices and those sort of decisions. And we want to make the best choices and the best decisions. And and thank you for you every time. When we know better, we do better. And so like this idea of like wanting to know better.
Yeah.
Being earnest about what we do with that. And that answer can change, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's concerning.
Yeah.
And so the systematic defunding of the public education system, this is all insidious and purposeful. And so do you put your kids out, you know, do you leave the system? Do you just start homeschooling and there's micro schools, but also you have to worry about your baby and like your personal situation versus system.
Yeah.
But like the destruction of like the whole education system, like purposeful destruction. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to have an education system to go back to if everybody, anyway, there are all those sorts of things. And so I'm just curious from your professional.
So the first thing I'll say, I actually get this question a lot and everybody's first thought is like, oh, I'm going to go homeschool my kid. And my response, having actually taught, is that everybody thinks that teaching is a lot easier than it is. And I'm not saying don't homeschool your kid. I think that if you have the resources and if you have the wherewithal and the patience, right, as well as the time, that homeschooling is a phenomenal solution. Not just because you can guarantee, right, that they're not exposed to the ways in which institutional racism and white supremacist ideologies are inherently rooted in the academic system and curriculum and teaching pedagogy and all those things. But let's be real. The American education system in general is failing kids of all social identities, period, across the board. So if that's a possibility for you, like I when I have kids, like I most likely will homeschool my children. Especially now that there's tons and tons of digital resources that are being offered, right? And you can like really pick and choose like who's teaching your kid and what they're teaching your kid and so on and so forth. Now, that being said, for most folks, it's not actually an option, right? Like homeschooling is just not possible. And so it's one of those like catch-22 answers, just like, you know, defunding the police and just like our two-party democratic voting system. And, you know, there's a problem with all of it. Like all of it is a dumpster fire. And the solution is not then like, well, I'm just not going to fucking educate my kids, whatever. Like, I don't care. The solution becomes, how do I need to vet and be more diligent with when I am making decisions for where my kid is going to go to school and who is going to educate my child, right? So for example, in the Bay Area, obviously there's a ton of private schools. Most of those private schools are obviously they're PWIs, so they're inherently problematic. But there are a lot of charter schools, really small charter schools that are specifically created to cater to marginalized communities and or to decenter whiteness in the both, again, in the curriculum, pedagogy, policies, you know, so on and so forth. So it does require looking, right? It requires really vetting. It requires asking the right questions. And I'll get to what the questions are in a second, but asking the right questions. And then the third thing is, because I have to like speak to everybody's potential reality, there's also the reality that some folks live in the middle of fucking nowhere, Arkansas, right? Like a small little town in Arkansas that doesn't have a lot of opportunities and maybe only has one school per grade level. And so at that point, it becomes our responsibility as grown-ups to ensure that teachers are put on notice, that the principal or headmaster or whatever, you know, depending on the school you're at, that the head of the school is put on notice and that the staff is put on notice from the very beginning. Hi, I'm watching you. Hi, these are the expectations that I have. Hi, I'm going to be that parent that's going to be on your ass about any of the things that I see that are inherently problematic to students in general, that are problematic to students with marginalized identities, depending on their marginalization. And also, I'd like to have a conversation about curriculum. Let me know when that can happen. I'll be here every day at 5:00. Right?
Number one, you're not wrong. You know this, right? And so, but number two, that's not really the answer that everybody's looking for, because that requires a lot of personal responsibility and a lot of accountability. And I just like put that asterisk and just be very blatant and very explicit about that, because you're not wrong. But I think that it also exposes it's not the answer that we want, because it's the most work for us as parents.
Yeah.
And we have been hoping that like other people, like they're supposed to be professionals who are in charge of these sorts of things. And so I think that this whole, like the pandemic, or like realizing that like nobody knows what they're doing, and it really is no matter the solution, it does go back on the parents.
Yeah.
To be diligent and to hold others accountable, but that requires us holding ourselves accountable as well.
Absolutely.
But just continue. I just
no, I mean, but it's the same. I mean, look at our system of policing. I mean, I don't even have words. Like, people have always, oh, well, no, somebody else is going to fix it. Really? Because folks are still dying. And they've been trying to fix it for years and years and years and years and years. Even our education system. How many times have we had education reform? Granted, Betsy DeVos fucked it all up. But how many times have we made attempts at education reform, right? How many times, like, just the way in which we as a society have this, like, really delusional version of how we think things actually happen. Like,
no child left behind. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great. But like not actually helpful, just an FYI.
Right.
To the people who it was actually, so if it's actually no child, it's like the all lives matter, right? Like
yes.
If no child left behind, then how did we
leave
still here?
All of these children behind. Left all of them behind. And in fact, the disparities got worse. So that is a really good point, because that was going to be my little like cherry on top, is like, and this is just like with anything else, right? It's hot or trend, the same way that like the hashtags are hot and trendy, the same way that we post and we go to protest when it's hot and trendy, but 2 months out, we're in August 2020. Please believe that I've noticed the way in which all the folks who are not actually directly impacted by these problems, or don't feel like it's personally their problem, have gotten real laissez-faire about their activism, right? It's the same way how parents, you won't hear, and I say this having been both an administrator and in the classroom, you won't hear from a parent for the first 5, until the kid's in the 5th grade, after the kid probably did some fuck shit, or somebody did something to their kid, and all of a sudden they come in guns blazing. I don't even know who your kid is, because they've been here K through 5th and I've never seen you. But then you want to turn around and have a problem with the way in which we're teaching, or our curriculum, or we're, doing whatever we're doing at school. Welcome to the conversation. Your kid's like 17 now.
Right. Well, I know. And then also I should have prefaced all of this by saying, haha, like on the side, because it is a new trending thing, right? Where like, wait, the public education system they don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, okay, also glad you're at the party now.
Well, exactly.
We'll take you and like meet you where you're at. And this is the question that people have.
Right.
Right. And so that's why I asked it, but also like, we're just now seeing this. Okay.
Yeah. And that's fine, right? If you're just waking up to it, like, cool. And let's be very honest about the reality that most folks want to complain or criticize without having even a modicum of an idea of a solution, or even asking for a solution, or even thinking about another way to, go about things, or even having taken a moment to ask questions or even get involved before they want to say, well, burn it all down. I would love to burn it all down. That's not realistic. So instead, you need to be asking your schools, what is their curriculum? Do they have a decentered, meaning decentered from whiteness, curriculum? Do they have narratives and stories and, lessons and images about folks of color that are not rooted or centered in their oppression, the genocide, right? The kidnapping, the human trafficking, the colonization of those people. In history, are the white folks the only ones that are taught as like the savior or the hero or the empire or the originator or the creator? Or are we actually teaching a true history of people? Right? These are questions that you get to ask your school. And that if your school is doing what they're supposed to do, which is educate children instead of just corralling them and hoping that they learn to read, they should have answers for this. They have to have answers for this. And then here's the other reality. So private schools are easier because there's money involved and, you're paying for it and you can put a little bit more gas on the pedal. With public school, you can go to all of the board meetings. You can make yourself heard. You can write letters. It's not just about going to the school campus and, getting on the teachers and getting on whoever the administrative staff is at your particular school. Because if you're in public school or a charter school, you can do whatever you want on a singular campus. They're going to turn around and tell you, oh, well, for example, in Oakland, OUSD has these sets of, standards for curriculum and so on and so forth. It's not on us. You have to talk to the district. And then they'll keep sending you higher and higher and higher. So then that's where you need to go as well. It's a full commitment. Yes,
and
please.
To just say on that, I think it's that the whole idea of it being people versus systems. And so, like, for instance, my son, we've been in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we're in Denver now. But he had a situation where he was called the N-word in class, and it was like this, and anyway, the whole whatever.
How old was he?
3rd grade. God, I don't want to cry right now. God, it's like traumatic every time it comes back up.
I mean, you're his mama. I might be concerned if you weren't emotionally impacted by that.
So I just want to say this idea of systems versus people. And his teacher was like a brand new teacher.
Yeah.
And I don't hold personally culpable because she was such a pawn in the systems, administration, principles, do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Of these other things. And so I think it's really hard, right? It is this idea of it just being very systemic.
Yeah. And I'm going to push back. I do hold that teacher accountable. Here's why. I don't know how she handled it, but I will tell you this. Having dealt with, I've taught K through high school. Okay. I left a school. Literally, I gave the school an ultimatum. That teacher, a thing happened with a Black student, and the school was not handling it right. And at the time I was in administration, and it was very simple. Are we as educators holding our schools responsible for the welfare and well-being of our students? Or are we glorified babysitters who are making sure kids can read? It is our responsibility as adults that claim the honor and the deep responsibility of not only educating children, but forming them. We are fundamentally responsible for how we are forming their minds, their brains, their relationship to academia, their relationship to themselves, their relationships to other people. So I hold everybody accountable in education because it is not a responsibility people should take lightly. And that teacher, her responsibility, this is the only appropriate way to handle it. I don't care if you've been there 2 days. You center that Black child. You absolutely punish. I don't care if you're 5, right? The punishment has to be appropriate, but you punish that child. You involve the parents, and then you force the school to take a stand on it, whether it's a public stand, whatever it is.
Okay. And that's the part that's really hard for people, right? Is that last.
Absolutely.
Because I would say she did everything, but you're also not wrong. Because I was just talking to my best friend. She and I were quitting jobs. We were quitting stupid jobs over ideological reasons at 18 because we believe that strongly in how you treat people or what you do.
Right.
Not wrong in that, if you believe strongly enough about it and the system isn't working or the people aren't working above you the way that they should be, then you do something about it if you're actually about that life. If you're actually about that life.
And that's the point. Most people is why I go back to 5 minutes ago. Most people aren't. Most people get real fired up and real spicy when it's either trendy, when they feel morally righteous, or when there's like pride and ego involved. But I think in terms of education specifically, that is not an option. Do not become a teacher if you are not ready to advocate and fight for every single one of your students, period.
I really appreciate that. I needed that confirmation today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, there's a lot of folks. This is why I say there's a difference between teachers and educators.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people becoming teachers and very few educators.
I don't even know how we got there. I was not trying to go there.
That's okay. That's where we got to. That's why this is great. So anyways, that's how I feel about that. And I will also say, right, there's a lot of nuance here. There's, different school board politics depending on the city that you're in. There's a lot of, different things that come into play here. And so this is more so for folks listening, right? These are reminders of how we should be moving. And now it's your responsibility to figure out, based on where you live, where your kid is at, where, how your school operates, how to take all of that information and that kind of framework, that container, right, that's built, and how you navigate inside of it, given your particular situation, where you live, where your kid is at, and what your resources are.
The only other thing I would say, and this is my commercial, so feel free to, but this is, and I wasn't and I have lots of passions, but this is not something. It keeps calling me back, not because I wanted to do it, but because it's been selfishly what I need to do for my baby, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of like, it does matter for like all the babies, but like seeing how it absolutely manifests itself. So I started offering, I'm going to be offering Zoom-a-Mom, basically electronic babysitting up to being free. So like, for like, if there are people who are working from home or like, you've got mixed age kids who are at home and you're whatever. But this idea of like being a support, and then I started offering curriculum coaching just to very close people who feel aligned based off of those three things, because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would say is that I think it's important for people to have community.
100%.
Right. And so whatever you're doing, that you find your community to be able to feel aligned and feel confident and knowing like that you're getting those resources and having that education around that to be an empowered parent. To know that you know what you're doing. That's the only other thing that I like, just based off of what I've heard from you too, of your preaching.
Yeah, 100%. We can't do anything without community. Period. Literally nothing. We like the white Eurocentric beliefs around individuality are the very thing that is, one, keeping us from moving forward faster, right? There's an old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I'm more interested in going farther.
Yeah.
Even if it's slower. So I think that's phenomenal. That's dope.
I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time and your energy today. It was
no problem.
Such a dream.
Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'll just say I'll see you soon.
You will. You'll see me on the interwebs.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Happy Friday. Happy weekend.
You too. Bye.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in. Rate, review, subscribe, like, share this podcast with all of your peoples. Follow me on Instagram. And you can always join me in community over at Podia. Until next time.